lifeless body of 14-year-old Jessica Grimard has been found in a stream that flows near her family home. The investigators do not have any leads in her case. They arrest Angelo Collaleo for an unrelated sexual assault in the same part of the city.
I was called in to administer a polygraph test to a prisoner who had been charged with murder.
The prisoner tells Gilles Lafrance that his cellmate, Angelo Collaleo, has confessed to a heinous crime. He cut the throat of a young girl and left her in a stream in the Montreal suburb of Rivière-des-Prairies.
So when he told me that, since I had worked on the case of the girl who was in the same neighborhood, I thought, my God, we have our suspect and he's here in the detention center.
Joanne Barabé asks Lafrance to convince the murder suspect to be an informant and get more details from Collaleo.
And the next day, we went to see him and get more details. And to our great surprise, he gave us details from the scene of the crime that had not been mentioned before, such as the way the victim had been discovered, facts that could only have been known to the perpetrator of the crime, and to the investigators who had gone over the crime scene.
Collaleo's crimes are so depraved that even another murderer can't keep them a secret. He agrees to cooperate.
At night in his cell, the informant would secretly make notes on the information he had received. He was even able to make sketches of the crime scenes and exactly how he carried out the crimes. Quite specific details. This information was sent to us week by week.
The case against Collaleo is getting stronger. Investigators must now confirm that the letters taken from his apartment match the ones sent to the dangerous offender in prison under the pen name Frank. The Quebec Provincial Police seize the mail in the dangerous offender's cell. They find over 350 letters full of sex, violence, and murder. There are nearly 30 written by Collaleo. All these letters are passed on to Jennifer Colomb. She begins the daunting task of reading over 1,500 pages of horrifying correspondence. She comes across a letter written 10 days after Jessica's murder. It describes in detail the rape and brutal murder of a young girl. A sickening letter, unbelievably sadistic and depraved.
And it started off with, "Hi, how are you? I'm fine, how's work, this and that." And then all of a sudden, the letter stops and it says, "I'm gonna tell you about something that happened, an adventure." And the adventure starts off with this guy going in his car, how he looked for somebody. It could have been anybody. What he was looking for, he knew. The type of evening it was, the description of the rain and everything else, that was part of his plan. He described extremely graphic detail, the pursuit, the chase, the hunting of a victim. And what happened was he found one. Unfortunately, he found one. I couldn't fathom that people could do this to other people and describe it in graphic detail. It was extremely disturbing to read these letters. And even when it came to the fantasies, I had trouble thinking that human beings, one human being, could do this to another. It was difficult.
Joanne Barabé is notified with a copy of the letter.
I read the letter over and over again, many times. Every detail described in the letter was verified and consistent with the crime scene.
The details in this letter could have only been known by the perpetrator of the crime and the investigators at the scene. The position of the body, the location of the wounds, the way the wounds had been inflicted, a description of the victim, and the exact time and location of the crime.
It was very difficult to read all those details. It was difficult in the sense that when you go to a scene, you only know what you see. But reading that letter, you could see the feelings of the attacker, how he was enjoying what he was doing. And he also describes the feelings and the suffering of the victim.
Kalaleo actively hunts down his prey. He writes, "I'm going to wait for her next week and see where she lives. The next day, I will try to see if there's anyone at home. If not, I'll use the flower delivery technique. Believe me, I work hard to make sure I don't leave any traces." On May 7th, 2002, Kalaleo decides to make his move. A little after 8 p.m., he spots his prey. A few hundred meters further, and she'll be safe at home. He has to intercept her calmly without frightening her. He asks her the time and strikes up a conversation.
Then he got out a knife, put it to her throat, and took her to the forest. And then he sexually assaulted her.
He brutally rapes her next to the stream. Then he promises her he will spare her life if she does what he says. He has Jessica wash away all traces of his crime.
After the sexual assault, he says to his victim, "Go and wash in the stream. I don't want anything of me left on you," even though he had worn a condom. The victim didn't want to because the water was very cold. So then he showed her the knife and said, "You don't have a choice. Go and wash."
When she walks out of the stream shivering, he lets her put her clothes back on.
That was when he cut her throat and stabbed her repeatedly. Back at home, he went to bed. He was remembering what he had done and began feeling aroused. And then he thought, there's DNA. I didn't get rid of all the DNA. So he went back to the scene. He took the victim's body and moved it around a bit to wash it.
The letter is dated May 17th, 2002, 10 days after the crime. Line after line, the murderer relives what he has done, triumphantly sharing it with his old prison mate.
He is truly a cruel, cold-blooded predator. One who knows our investigation techniques and will do anything to make sure he doesn't get caught. Even if that means going back to the crime scene twice.
Among the letters, Jennifer Colomb has found 2 other stories of rape and murder that seem very real. These stories are consistent with the deaths of 2 girls in 1993. In both cases, the murderer used fire to hide the evidence. Can Kalaleo be responsible for these deaths as well?
So I had to look at these 2 other murders that had been made to look like fires. I needed to see whether I could resume the investigations and find evidence that would match his accounts of the scenes.
The cases against Kalaleo are multiplying. It seems inevitable that he will spend the rest of his life in prison, or will he find a way to escape his fate? The serial rapist, Angelo Kalaleo, has been arrested again. He is now a suspect in 3 murders. including 14-year-old Jessica Grimard. Jessica was found by her father in a stream near their home. Jennifer Colomb believes she has found confessions to 3 murders in the letters written by Colaleo.
In one of them, he describes his MO of how he committed a crime, of how he committed a sexual assault. And it was written as though it was written in a police report. Here is my MO. This is exactly how I do my crimes. And he described about how he gained access to a house. He described how he coerced the victim.
Colaleo had developed a well-executed technique for capturing his victims. After gaining their confidence, pretending to be a flower delivery man, messenger, or repairman, he would ask to use the washroom.
He would use the washroom and put something in the toilet bowl to make it foam up. Then he'd say to the person, "Come have a look. There's something wrong with your toilet." Then he would draw his victim into an enclosed space. And then he would handcuff her and threaten her. He would take her to her bedroom and sexually assault her. And then he would use his own special technique. He would strangle his victim just long enough so that she was still breathing. And then he would set the house on fire. So the victim was still breathing and there were no marks.
Colaleo had always captured his victims in a controlled place, inside their homes or in his car, places where he would be sure that he could wash away every bit of evidence. Jessica's murder was the first time in his psychotic career that he deviated from his strategy. Colaleo confessed his secret to the cellmate in jail. He was haunted by the fear of leaving traces next to the stream. Joanne Berube has gathered evidence to charge Angelo Colaleo in 3 cases, including the murder of Jessica Grimard. Crown Prosecutor Louis Bouthier will take the case to trial. He is faced with a tough opponent.
Colaleo was careful because he had already been convicted. He'd already been given long prison sentences. In his letters, he says that he has been careless in the past, but he will not make that mistake again. So, he said, in graphic terms, that he would not let another victim get away from him if they could identify him.
Bouthier believes he has overwhelming evidence. The detailed confessions made by Colaleo to the informant and the explicit descriptions he wrote in the letters can both be used to convict him.
It is often said that in a criminal trial, there is one witness who is very important. But in this case, our important witness was the letters Colaleo had sent to the individual incarcerated in Port-Cartier.
Colaleo's lawyer objects to the admissibility of the letters. They are so explicit and pornographic that they will likely sway the jury. As well, Colaleo gives vulgar details about the crimes he wants to commit in the future, which are not admissible.
I will spare you the details, but they were absolutely horrifying. Things involving young children and their parents. Unimaginably violent. Often ending with the death of the young victim.
In his letters, Colaleo also talks about his ultimate dream.
And his dream is to be out, to help his buddy escape from prison, find a house and bring victims to that house to gratify their depraved appetites. When he talked about that, he compared himself to another famous psychopath, Paul Bernardo.
The preliminary hearing begins for the 3 counts of murder. Colaleo appears before the court.
The image he projected was of the guy next door, a very average, ordinary guy you wouldn't have noticed on the street.
The trial date is set for January 9th. The families of the victims have prepared themselves to relive their ordeal. All the media in Quebec are prepared to give it maximum coverage. But 2 days before trial, Kalaleo is found lifeless in his prison cell. It is a hard blow for the Crown, and a completely unexpected one.
We were to start jury selection on Monday at 9:30, and I was notified of Mr. Colaleo's death at 9:20, 10 minutes beforehand.
Kalaleo died of a drug overdose. Some people are happy that Kalaleo's suicide was a self-inflicted death penalty. Others think he was too cowardly to stand trial. Kalaleo used water to cover up a nearly perfect crime, but his arrogant admissions were his downfall. He gave investigators the evidence they needed to beat him at his own game.